Hi, guys and girls. This is Jakey from Cyhra, and you are watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 173 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Jake E. from Cyhra. How you doing today, man? Great to be able to talk with you today.
Yeah, nice to see you. Nice to talk to you, and I'm doing great. It has been great weather in Sweden today. Finally, we've had like a monsoon season, even though we're not in the tropics. It's been really weird. They promised us to have great weather all summer, but it hasn't been like that. So yeah, I've enjoyed the nice weather from the window doing interviews all day.
That's great because here in Georgia, we have pretty much swamp ass weather. Like it goes up to like 90 plus degrees, sometimes even 100. Feels like we're in like the desert or sometimes.
And soon the season starts with all the hurricanes, right?
Oh, damn. Pretty much. Like it's getting cloudy outside, so it has rain, so it's cooled down some. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I was in Atlanta, I think 2018. I was there, and they predicted that
Oh
the
yeah, I was at
hurricanes
that show.
yeah, they were gonna they predicted that the hurricanes were gonna hit Florida, but it changed its mind, and everyone from Florida had went up to Atlanta, and then the hurricanes decided to go to Atlanta instead. And I actually jumped on the last flight from Atlanta to New York before they closed the airport. It was just like it, Mordor was approaching in the car. It was the craziest thing. And then they closed the airport after my plane took off. That was weird.
Yeah, that's weird. But anyway, we have the new Cyhra album, the Vertigo Trigger, coming out August 18th through Nuclear Blast Records. Can you talk to me about the whole writing and recording process and how that whole thing came to be and that good stuff?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we released the No Halos in Hell late 2018, and we started touring on that. We got great reviews, and we went on tour with Battle Beast and Delane, and we were just about to jump on a tour in the States, and then the pandemic came, and it was just someone just took the rug underneath our feet, and it hurt us tremendously, and I went down into a really down period because I was just like, I knew that I had the best fucking album that I've ever done, and we couldn't tour on it. It hurt me tremendously. So I couldn't really put myself into writing mode straight away. uh, so I did a lot of other things like playing Call of Duty and just sit inside during the pandemic and not doing anything. I produced some other artists. I wrote an album for a band called Venus 5 and did some guest stuff just to keep the money rolling in. But for Cyhra, I was just like, I don't want to release an album during a pandemic because we don't know how long this pandemic is going to hold on to. And I did not want to release an album and then it will another year will pass and then it's time to do another album, and then that album in between is going to be forgotten. So it was not until 2021, I think, that I finally started to tell the guys and talk to the guys that okay, now we start working on this. And at that time, Oiga, our guitar player, he had been sitting at home and not playing Call of Duty. He had instead dug deep into mixing. So he said that, yeah, I know everything I know about mixing now. So let me mix the songs because we cannot go to Jacob Hansen that we usually go to in Denmark because all the borders are closed. So we gave him a shot, and it actually turned out to be really, really good. So at that time, we just decided, let's produce the album ourselves. Let's take the time we need. And it took us probably 6 or 7 or 8 months to write and record. As we did everything, instead of making demos and then go back to them, we actually wrote and recorded the songs as they progressed. So when I was done with the song, that was the final thing. And then I sent it to Eugen and he mixed them. So song per song were made, and then finally we had the 11th song that we needed, and then we could start to finally push out music in 2022, which was the Ready to Rumble track. And then we realized another thing. We were about to release the album early 2023, but we just saw that the market is cramped. It was just like everyone was releasing, and all the festivals was completely fully booked. The tour was already booked, and we just like, there's no chance for us to release this now because like it's just gonna disappear. So that is the reason why we're releasing it now in August, when the business and the market is finally starting to like come back to what it was before the pandemic hits.
All right. And did you want to continue in sort of the same vein as No Halos in Hell or even the Letters to Myself, or did you want to start something fresh with this album?
Uh, Whenever I'm in a band, whenever I write music for one particular band, I want people to hear. It shouldn't matter for them if they listen to the first album or the seventh album. They should feel at home. They should be able to hear that, yeah, this is the same band. But obviously you got other influences, and there's new mixing techniques and there's new sounds and there's new whatever. But and I wanted us to go in a way, for already from the first album, we felt that we had a fantastic album, but not all of the songs worked out live. On No Halos in Hell, I think that we got halfway on making all the songs work in a live environment. But that was my main focus on the Vertigo Trigger, to make sure that all the songs were written as singles in a way so that we could pick them all into a live set. It shouldn't matter. So you usually say when you write a good album that there's no fillers, but for me, it's not that. It's a song can be heard differently if you listen to it in headphones or if you listen to it in a live scenario. And we went to Japan in January and we played 9 shows in 10 days. And we played the whole album front to back for the audience, plus our old songs as well. And we really felt that we had succeeded in making them live friendly. Um, so yeah, that is something that I'm extremely happy about with this album.
All right. And you mentioned like you recorded this during the pandemic. Mick, did the pandemic at all sort of like influence the writing in a way, or do you try to like forget about it and keep it completely separate?
No, it actually had a big impact on me. One of the first things that I like to mention about this is that all my life, since I was like 6 or 7 years old, I have been battling with death anxiety. And it has always been something that has approached me in waves. So at some point in life, it's the only thing that I've been thinking about. And in some parts of my life, I haven't, even touched the subject. I have just been happy and not been thinking about life at all. But when the pandemic hit, it all came back to me as a, tsunami. It just, because all of a sudden your mind is not occupied with all the stuff that you need to, keep track on every day. Instead, you're sitting at home and you're not allowed to go out, and the only thing you could do is to wear a mask and go to the store and buy groceries, and then you can go back again. And you're like, it hit me again. And then when I started to write the lyrics, I was just like, I've never been really personal in my lyrics, except for Battles from Within on the No Halos in Hell album. It's always been stories that I've been writing that, of course, I've experienced, but I also always written them from a perspective that other people should be able to take them as their own, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
But this album, I really opened up and I wrote them from my perspective, and I'm telling my story and I'm telling what I feel. So I would say that the pandemic actually had a huge impact on the outcome of the album.
All right. And me being a fan of Cyhra, or I love all three albums, like I could tell like you bring like the different styles, like the pop, catchy kind of like fun melodic style, and then just like the heavy style, because I'm just curious, like when it came to like the formation of Cyhra, because I know you coming from Amaranth, which is just a completely like pop kind of metal, but then you, of course you have Jesper coming from like In Flames and Ceremonial Oath, or just straight up melodic death metal. So does like everybody kind of like bring in like their own style and influence into Cyhra in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it has been like a natural progression when me and Jesper sat down. I mean, like Olaf, the guitar player in Amaranth, his biggest inspiration was Jesper. So I mean, like you could hear that already in Amaranth, the melodic kind of guitar playing. And now I'm playing with the original Jesper, and uh, it's not that far off. And my way of writing songs has always been, I'm a Swedish dude, right? And
Yeah.
we grew up with ABBA and Roxette and all these kind of bands, and it's all about the melody and the hooks and the choruses. And so that has always been my way of writing songs. It doesn't matter if it's Dreamland or Amaranth or Cyhra. My way of writing music is always the same. Or if I write songs for others, the hook line for me is always the most important thing. Um, but in Cyhra, absolutely everyone is bringing their stuff. I mean, like I could program drums on a song and I think that it sounds great. And then I send it to Alex and Alex sends his drums back. And I'm like, oh, you added 20% of awesomeness because you added things that is you. He brings his soul to it. And the same thing with Oige Marcus and when Peter was in the band as well and Jesper. So yeah, absolutely. Even if there's one songwriter on one song, when all the other members are doing their things, you could absolutely hear that something else is happening with the song. It brings it to another dimension.
Yeah, and I'm always curious, like, how did you meet Jesper, by the way?
Me and Jesper have been friends for now, I think it's 22 years.
Wow.
We first met when I was a big In Flames fan back in the days, but then I got the job as the pyrotechnician for In Flames.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we were sharing tour buses, and we became friends pretty early on. And but we never really talked about making music until 6 7 years ago. And but when we first sat down and playing together, it was like it was a thing that we've always done.
Yeah.
And now it's so cool. I mean, like Jesper has been one of my closest friends for forever, but now we actually move here, so now we're neighbors. So he
Wow.
just lives in the house next to me.
Yeah, that's great. Just be like, hey, what's up, bud?
Exactly.
Yeah. And kind of I want to turn back the clock a little bit because this year does mark 10 years of the Nexus by Amaranth, which is probably like my favorite Amaranth album. So but I wanted to ask kind of like a two-parter is one, what is sort of like the mind frame making that album? And two, did you take like what you've learned with the the Amaranth to what you do with Cyhra or like any other projects?
What do you mean? Like the
In terms of like
mindset.
the song, in terms of like songwriting and everything.
Here's the funny thing when it talks about Amaranth and the Nexus album, which is now I'm extremely proud of that album because so many people are talking about it, and it has been. It's almost like it's one of these iconic albums, just as you see with Colony for In Flames that everyone is talking about. Like it's so cool to have been part of an album that has there's so many memories for people around that album. But the truth with that album was that we wrote the first Amaranth album, and we took the time. We took the time. We said no to so many record labels, and we had contract offers on our table, but we were just like we were waiting and waiting and waiting for the right offer. And when we got that from Universal, um, everything just happened like bam, in an instant. We were playing Loud Park in Japan. We were touring. We were opening up for a lot of bands, and in a year and a half we could tour by ourselves. And then we were forced to write our second album pretty fast. So the songwriting for the Nexus, I can't really remember because we wrote probably half of the album in the studio. We had the ideas for songs, but we weren't really ready because we just had to record a new album. And the mindset on that album was more or less like, okay, we just continue doing what we did last time, but faster. And so I think that was a good thing because we didn't we weren't overthinking too much when we wrote when we did that album. We just did what we knew that we were good at, and what came out of it was that album. So that was cool.
All right. And kind of like going into the songwriting, because I know you kind of touched upon it with like the lyrically talking about like personal struggles and stuff. Like, does that come from, like, as I know you've talked about it with like the last album, but with that, do you try to like put yourself into like that mind frame to get sort of that creative structure or something?
I Writing lyrics for me is probably pretty how to word that. It has to do with what surrounds you at the moment. I mean, like during the Trump campaign, for example, I wrote a lot of lyrics, about like how stupid people has become, and so on. And during the pandemic, when I was, in this hellhole of a home, because like you're locked in, all your demons approaches you, and you're like, your mindset is all about like, oh, why do I feel this bad? Or when we did the letters to myself, I already knew that I was going to make an album about Jesper, and that is the reason why it's called Letters to Myself, because I more or less interviewed Jesper, and it's me singing them, and I wrote the lyrics, but it's stories about Jesper's life. So it always depends on what's around you and what kind of mood you're in. But I never try to force myself into to saying that, oh, I'm gonna write the depressive song or whatever. When I write lyrics, it's usually how I feel at that time, that what comes out of me.
Yeah, so it just comes like naturally and organically. You don't like to half-ass it.
No, but Amaranth was a different thing when I wrote these lyrics, because there we knew that we wanted to have a storyline. And I mean, like that is the cool thing with the first two Amaranth albums, because if you sort the songs in different orders, you're gonna get a story, about a guy that ends up in the future. So it's written more like the first two Amaranth albums are written more as a movie. It's more like a movie script.
All right. And I
So
got
that's
two
all
more questions
fictional.
for yeah. And I got two more questions for you if that's cool. And kind of like
Of course.
going into like the live show, because I've only seen Cyhra once. You did that tour with Sabaton and Creator, and I think it
Yeah.
was just great seeing you like seeing you live is different than listening to you on the album. So what is there like a different like mind frame to playing live as opposed to like recording an album?
Um, it is harder to perform the songs live when you don't know that you were supposed to record them. I mean, like when we made the first Cyhra album, we had no idea about if we're gonna get a record deal even. So we just wrote the best songs that we could do, and for me, probably some of the hardest song to sing live. And then all of a sudden, you're getting booked to play live, and like me coming from a band where we were three different singers, and you could always have 20 seconds of a breathing time in between until it was your time to shine it again. Uh, that was hard. So nowadays I'm trying to focus on when I write the songs to like, okay, am I going to be able to do a good performance live? Because that is what matters the most to me. So yeah, it's a complete different mindset. Absolutely. When you're up on stage, you need to make the audience happy. You need to make it look good on stage, and you need to sing in pitch, and uh, sort of impress people that it sounds like it should sound like.
All right. And the final question I wanted to ask you is coming from Sweden. I believe Sweden's like, I consider like one of the big capitals when it comes to metal with band, but it's also very diverse. Like a band like, of course, Cyhra is different from a band like Monomarth that's different from In Flames to Dark Tranquility, Dark Funeral to Night Crown. So how diverse of the scene in Sweden, or did you feel like comfortable being part of that, or did you want to like get outside of Sweden and play in front of different countries and audiences and all that stuff?
Here's the funny thing with Sweden. I mean, like, I'm extremely proud about our music heritage here and all the bands that we've put on the map. And most of the bands that you just said there, they're all friends of mine. And the cool thing with the metal community in Sweden is that everyone is helping each other out. I mean, like we're it doesn't there's no competition between the bands. We're all a big family, but none of us is prophets in our home country. Maybe In Flames, maybe Hammerfall has managed to get that kind of royal status in Sweden. But all these bands that you're mentioning, our livelihood is abroad, which is so weird. We need to, step out of our own country, and it's not until oh yeah, Sabaton, of course. They are probably the kings of Sweden now because they now sell out, football stadiums in Sweden. But everyone were laughing at them for so many years because they were trying so hard, and they got their success from abroad. And it's first when bands from Sweden succeed in another country or in another continent where the Swedes is like, yeah, I love them. Come home, come home. So it's a weird scenario, I must say. But I'm so happy for Sabaton. I'm so happy because they are the hardest working people that I've ever seen in my entire career, and I've known them since they started, 20 years ago. And I'm so happy for them, and I'm happy for Sweden to be able to have produced such a fantastic band.
Yeah, they're amazing. I've only seen them twice, and they're a fucking great live band.
Yeah, they're fantastic live. Fantastic live.
Yeah. So before we go, I just want to thank you for this interview. It's great to be able to talk with you. Is there just anything else with the Veritgo Trigger that you'd like to also plug in terms of like tours and stuff? And when can we expect Cyhra back in the States?
I really, really hope that we will come back to the States in 2024. We're working really, really hard on that. We're just getting the visas together. Thanks to our fans that helped to help us with this pledge campaign, and I'm extremely thankful for that. But also, I want everyone to at least give it a listen. Listen to a couple of songs. If you like it, please share it with your friends, because the more people that we see listen to the album in the States, that is going to increase the chances for us to actually come over and play there. So, if you like it, share it. If you don't like it, share it, because it might be so that your friend will like it, even if you are not liking it.
Yeah, it's great. So everybody, Jake E from Cyhra, see you next time.